Becca and welcome to a reading vlog. This vlog is going to be themed around the magical readathon and it's linked to a vlog that I did in May. So what happened in May was I decided to go to a magical school and every time I read a book I passed a subject, but now I'm like, I need to get better grades in all of the subjects that I passed. So I've got restoration, elemental studies, and alchemy. So I can do all of these subjects either in order or out of order. As long as I finish all of them, I'm completely fine and on track to become a healer. So I'll read you the prompts and then I will pick out the books and we'll get into this vlog. Elemental studies is read a book with earth in the title, which I think I'm really going to struggle with. Then alchemy has 2 prompts, and the first one is read a book that is first in a series, and then the second prompt is read the sequel in a series. Then for restoration we've got 3 prompts. The first of the 3 is start reading a book before bed, which is going to be pretty easy for me given that the only time I get to read at home in my house is before I go to bed. Then I've got one of my oldest TBR books, and then the final prompt under restoration is read in a different place wherever you pick the book up, which given that I commute to and from the city every single day for work is going to be really easy because I sit on a different seat in the train every single time I go. So I will just pop an audiobook that I'm going to read for that prompt. Firstly, I would very much like to talk about Payback's a Witch because this is a sapphic witchy book and it's the first in the Thistle Grove series, and because it's first in a series you'd think that I would read it for that prompt, but no. I'm going to be doing Half a Soul for that one because this is a cozy fantasy that I've really been keen on trying out, and what better time than now to start a shorter, cozier book during a readathon. So that'll be my first in a series prompt. I think read the second book in a series is going to be a book that I don't have yet, and that will be Ravensong by J Klune because that's coming up on the 8th of August, which is kind of why I haven't really started this vlog. I haven't felt in the right headspace to do so, but now that we're getting into August and that release is coming up, I'm excited to start it and go and buy it and just own it. I'm just excited. But Thistle Grove, because it doesn't have earth in the title, I'm using this anyway, which is, I mean, it's kind of cheating, but I've got nothing on my to be read cart that has earth in the title, and Grove is the closest thing I can get to earth, so it is going to have to do. And then also in terms of read in a different place every time you pick up a book, I said that I wanted to do an audiobook on my commute, and during the month of August I've only really been reading audiobooks so far just because it's easiest to do while I commute, and the audiobook I've been reading is Under the Whispering Door by J Klune. And while it's fine, I think it's starting to put me in a bit of a reading slump because it's a dour mood. Like, it's about a guy who dies and then as a ghost he goes to this tea shop before he crosses over because it's kind of like a waypoint, and he gets to know everyone at the tea shop. So it's kind of a cozy fantasy almost, but he's dead. So you know it's not going to end with like sunshine and rainbows, and that's why I'm worried about it, and I think it's putting me into an emotional reading slump because I don't want to read anything else after I finish it. I'm just like, I need to get it done so that I can be sad, which is not a great way to look at a readathon. And of course I'm hoping that I like these as well, but stay tuned and I will update you and let you know how I go. I also wanted to get this onto my readathon TBR, but I don't think I can because it's not a series, it's just a standalone, and it's a witch's guide to fake dating a demon. I might just read this during the readathon because I want to, but it depends on how I go with everything else. And just before I go, the oldest book on my TBR, I have the audiobooks for some of the books that I've started previously in other videos and not continued now, so I'll let you know what I end up choosing because I'm still kind of on the fence about those. So I'll let you know at a later date what happens, what eventuates with that prompt. Hello, I do have some updates for you, but I feel like this vlog is just going to be chaotic in nature given that my life feels very chaotic at the moment and I'm trying to bring some semblance of order into it by doing this readathon. So I apologise in advance if you can detect any kind of unrest during this vlog. I'm very tired, there are things going on right now, and I'm trying to make myself enjoy books and I'm finding it hard. So I finished Under the Whispering Door by J Klune and I didn't love it as much as I hoped I would, but I kind of knew that as I was progressing through the book. It didn't make me cry or anything, and I liked the characters and the dynamics between them that were developing across the story, but so many times I caught myself sitting on the train and just kind of feeling a bit listless, like it was sending me to sleep. And I think that's partly because of the pace of the story. It wasn't deeply engaging, but I enjoyed reading it. So I gave it 3 stars. I'm kind of glad I tried it given that I've had a very big hit with Wolfsong with J Klune, and then I DNF'd House on the Cerulean Sea. I wanted to see how I reacted to his other work, so I'm more surprised that I even finished it, to be honest. But speaking of J Klune, I mentioned this book earlier, Ravensong is out, and like this chaotic vibe right now. I'm currently reading several things, so I'm not quite up to picking this book up yet, but it's a long one. I'm really excited. It's about two characters who are like a second chance romance in this small town of Green Creek with werewolves. Because Wolfsong is like part of my heart now, surely this is going to be enjoyable. It's not going to continue my curse of sequels in series that I enjoy being like subpar. It's not going to happen. It's not gonna happen. So technically that would be my sequel, whatever prompt that was. And then the Under the Whispering Door book was the one that I needed to move every time I was reading it. I'll put, if it's relevant and I can be bothered, which subjects those are for on the screen, because I've got 3 subjects and 1, 2, and 3 prompts under each subject. So that is a lot of reading to pack in around my just regular reading for the month. So with that said, I'm reading this one still, and it is short and I really enjoy it, but I've had so much going on lately that when I get home in the evenings, I've started to fall back into this routine of just like doom scrolling my phone, and I need to start switching back out of that routine again. And when I'm having downtime, I should pick up a book instead of my phone. It's difficult, honestly, especially with winter at the moment too. I feel like everybody that I know is in some kind of slump, which sucks, to be perfectly honest. But this book does not suck. It is actually really sweet. And it's a Regency romance, so it's in that vein of like almost Pride and Prejudice in terms of the socio-political intrigue that's happening here, and these characters coming to London to be built up in society to find husbands. But because this character had a run-in with a high fae prince at the beginning of the book, she's now got half a soul because he took it from her, and this character in London has this sorcery kind of background, but he's also shunned from society because he's too blunt and acidic and he rubs people the wrong way all the time. But because of her demeanour and the fact that she doesn't react the way that other people do, she's got a tolerance for him, and I really like their developing relationship. I'm only 70 pages into this book, but I wanted to flick back and read you something because I feel like this sums up their dynamic really well. And this is an interaction which has resulted in our main character having her dress dirtied, so she needs to clean it. And the guy's like, "What are you doing, you mad little twit?" And a bit further down the page, she says, "I would have thought the situation was self-evident," Dora told him calmly. "Does a man of your formidable knowledge really require the concept of laundry to be explained to him?" She's literally washing her dress in a fountain at a ball. So she's basically standing there in her underclothes washing this dress, and then she's like, people probably shouldn't see me doing this. Like, this isn't a normal people's reaction to having a dirty dress. Their dynamic is just like the delightful chaos, and they really make room for each other in their dialogue. I really like it. So I'm anticipating that this will be at least a 4 stars, which is a nice upswing for my reading given that most of the things I've either DNF'd or given 3 stars, which is fine, I guess, because I'm not making time for things that I don't enjoy, and I'm not hating other things that I'm reading, but like I want a 4 or 5 stars, come on. Actually, speaking of which, because I finished my audiobook, I am now reading an audiobook that randomly came available for 14 days from my library. Super surprising, and it's Beach Read by Emily Henry. I thought I wouldn't have this for like 10 more weeks, so the fact that I'm reading it now is very surprising. And people describe this as women's fiction and as romance. Honestly, I think that description was a bit garbled because the character in the book is deemed to write women's fiction, and she has a problem with the fact that it's women's fiction because it's about women who are people, and the story is relevant to whoever picks it up and reads it. Like, people want their happy ending, they want true love. So she's like, why is it called women's fiction when it can be applicable to anyone? So it's about her going on this retreat, recovering from family trauma, and trying to write this book that she promised her agent, but not having that spark to write. And the guy that's in the house next to her, he's this guy who she had a huge crush on in college, and they were kind of rivals in their writing classes, and he's also an author. So they're getting to know each other, but being very careful and kind of tiptoeing around each other and building up their friendship dynamic. And obviously a romance is blossoming as well. There is definite tension there. And I'm 50% into it, and I'm really liking just the vibe I'm getting from it, to be honest. And then this one, will I finish it by the weekend? Because I really want to read Raven Song. I'm challenged with my reading right now, and I also have Payback's a Witch to read as well, and then something else to pick for whatever prompts are left over, because I'm I'm positive that I've missed a few.
I thought I'd duck in for a quick update to let you know that we realised why we have been so run down and so tired, and that is because we have black mould. So we've got someone coming in twice this week to look at under the house. So at least we know why, and we've had a few nights out of that room now, so we're slowly building up and catching up on sleep again, which is great, but that explains why I've felt so out of focus, I guess. And so I can actually get back to reading and focusing on things and enjoying them. I feel like I've got some vitality back, which is, you know, that's always something that you want in life, some vitality. I'm 160 pages into my book, by the way. I haven't had any time on the weekend to read it. It's now Monday. So I'm just hoping that I can get through some reading this week because I don't want to spend too long on the magical readathon. I'm hoping to only spend 2 weeks. And so that basically means I've got a week to finish this, to finish Ravensong, and to finish Payback's a Witch, and my audiobook for my oldest book on my TBR. I might be missing one thing. I think I wanted to read a graphic novel during this readathon as well, and I can't remember what prompt it was for. So I have a lot of reading to get ahead of this week, which is stressing me out, but the good kind of stress, like it's making me motivated. So hopefully instead of scrolling my phone, I can pick up a book instead.
You know, it's not great when the insurance company lends you an industrial air purifier. So the mold is like under the floor here. It's going to be a long process to get rid of it, so probably renovations are in our future. It is the way it is.
Thankfully though, I actually have some reading updates. So I finished Half a Soul, and then I started this one like yesterday or the day before, and I completely and utterly finished it. And then I'm currently reading these two. I've got like an hour left of Uva, and then Payback's a Witch, I'm over halfway. So I'm doing pretty good. I didn't really want to get in front of the camera given that I'm run down and I've got this cold sore that's very painful, but I haven't described either of these, so I felt like I needed to sit down and do that before I ended up finishing them, which I feel like is on the very near horizon. So A Man Called Uva is about this guy who's 60. He's going through a lot of grief in his life, but he's not in a place where he is the kind of character to discuss these things. So definite trigger warnings for attempts on your own life. It is a heavier book, but the way that the information in here is hitting me and the story is unfolding, I'm not super invested in it to the point where I'm having emotional reactions, but I do care enough to continue and finish it. So it's probably going to hit around a 3 stars for me, which is kind of what I expected. I really like the tone of the story. Narration wise, it's very strong, but in terms of the subject matter, it's just not something that I'm usually drawn towards. I'm sure if there was more magic involved in here, I would be a lot more emotionally invested, and I can't explain that to you. That's just something that I prefer. Then we've got Payback's a Witch, which is described as 2 witches plot revenge but end up falling in love in this magical romantic comedy, and it's very much that, where this character has left Thistle Grove and she's come back after almost a decade, but she's made a life for herself in Chicago, and she's like running this business about, you know, subscription boxes and stuff, and she's right at the top of the food chain there, and she comes back to Thistle Grove, and while she's been away, her magic has faded away, and now that she's back, she's reconnecting with her parents, with her friends, and just getting more sequestered in this small town. So it's pulling very hard on that like small town romance trope where she didn't think that she liked this town very much, but it's really actually her home and she has a lot of heart there. And now she's run into this girl named Talia, who she kind of saw in high school and knew about her as this girl who was the untouchable one. She was so beautiful, and every girl, as a rite of passage, every queer girl had a crush on Talia during school, including our main character. And obviously those two are the love interests, but the reason that they're all getting together is kind of like a John Tucker Must Die situation. This character named Gareth has led all of them along, and he's betrayed them and cheated on them, and they're like, we need to make him pay for always having this privilege and getting away with everything because everything is handed to him. He's taking advantage of all of that power, and so they want to call him on it. So that's what they're doing. And there is a magical trial involved here. There are long-standing families with last names that link into the history of this town that was built a long time ago, like centuries ago. So I like all of the magic. I like how that's folded neatly into the story. I love the character interactions here. It's just a joy to read about, and I like that it's building up to a certain point. There's just been the, you know, the third act of like all hope is lost with the relationship. So I'm picking up now with more hope, like, oh, the bad thing has happened and these characters have talked about this bad thing and they've had a fallout, and all that's left now is to like recognize their own faults and then come back. So I'm looking forward to how that blends into the ending of like the tournament that's currently going on, with a reputation of all of the family names on the line. And I read pretty much almost all of this in one sitting. I've probably got about 100 pages left, so if I can't do all of it today, I'll do some of it today and the rest tomorrow. Also, at some point earlier in this vlog, I don't know why I was being so ambitious, but I said that I wanted to read this, and I very much do, but it's not going to happen in this vlog. I thought I might read this book with continuing the Shadow Cabinet because they're the same colour, and I've got another book that I haven't hauled that's in the same colour. So if I end up doing that kind of reading vlog, I'll let you know. At the moment, it's just kind of an idea depending on how I feel about my reading. I'm very mood readery at the moment, and I don't want to derail myself because I'm worried I'm going into a reading slump. But given that I finished 2 books and love them, which are these, I think I'm doing okay. This was a 5 stars, by the way. It just came out of nowhere and blew me out of the water. It definitely didn't have that like sequel second book syndrome. This was just as emotional as the first book, although with the centering of different characters, I didn't love it as much as the first book, but I still gave both of them 5 stars. I cried at book 1 and I teared up at book 2. So that is pretty stellar. And then Half a Soul was good. I said that I really loved it, but I just really loved the banter, and the ending was not as much as I hoped it would be. That kind of happens with Regency romance to me. It builds up to a crescendo and it builds all these characters up really slowly, and then it kind of just ends and then concludes. Like 3 stars, I suppose. It was great, but I also have no desire to continue the series. For the readathon, I think I'm smashing it right now. Okay, so it's a day later and I would like to report that I finished Payback's a Witch. I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. I really, like I said, enjoyed the world building. I liked how everything developed. Something about the ending made me go, oh, I kind of wish there was more to this ending, but at the same time I enjoyed the twists. So it's gonna sit comfortably at a 4 stars. It was great and I would recommend it. However, that said, I know that this is a 4-book series, but each one is like a companion, and I don't really feel like I necessarily need to continue. I've had a quick look at the other synopses for the books, and I think I might just dive into book 3 if I can find it. But beyond that, I'm not super engaged in terms of continuing, but I did enjoy myself when it came to this one. So I feel like I should run over the magical readathon prompts and go, yes, I did those, and I failed this one. Just so I've got kind of an overview, because I've mentioned the prompts very loosely throughout this video, but I feel like I haven't said anything completely concrete about which book is for what. I also would like to mention that I intended to read more of Uva and I don't have much left, but I'm gonna read that when I'm on the train. I didn't have any time to fit an audiobook into my weekend, unfortunately, so it is what it is. In terms of the reading prompts, I've just scooched over to the side so that I can put them in on the screen next to me. And in order of Elemental Studies, Alchemy and Restoration, which were the 3 subjects I needed to complete in order to get my degree of a healer, I don't think I'm gonna pass, just between you and me. I had to do 1 subject, 2 subjects, and then 3 subjects. So altogether, 6 books. I think I've got 5 books. The first reading prompt was read a book with Earth in the title, and I read Payback's a Witch, which doesn't have Earth in the title, but for Thistle Grove, which is the series title, I went with Grove because it's the closest I could find to anything resembling Earth on my to be read pile, so I finished it. It will have to do. I gave it 4 stars. Then for the next prompt, I had read the first book in a series, and that was for Alchemy for the first prompt, and I read Half a Soul, which I enjoyed. I'm gonna settle on a 3.5 stars because I enjoyed all of the banter, but then something about the ending, it felt like it very, very minutely undermined everything that had built up to that point. Just in one of the asides mentioned, I was like, oh, that kind of unravels a little bit of it for me. So 3.5 stars, and I still enjoyed the journey to get to the end. Then we've got Continue a Series, and that was Raven Song, because this is the sequel in the Green Creek series. Wolf Song is the first book. I gave this 5 stars, flying colours, no notes in the negative sense. I love this so much. Then we've got the Start a Book Before Bed prompt, which is under restoration, and the only time I really read is in the evenings. In the Magical Readathon, you don't really double up because you're supposed to read 1 book per prompt, but I just included Raven Song for this one because I did start it before I went to bed. That does but doesn't count. I think I'm gonna count it. At the end of the day, it is a made up readathon where you're going to get a magical career. So I feel like I can count it just because I want to. Then also under restoration, we've got read the oldest book on your TBR. And for me, it was a tie between Battle Mage and this book because both of them I've had on and off other to be read lists and I haven't got to them. But I chose A Man Called Uva because it was easily done as an audiobook, and I just missed out on finishing it. So this one I didn't finish, and I think it's going to be my failure exam for doing the Magical Readathon because of this book and the hour of the audiobook that I just could not find the mental energy for. I failed the readathon. And then for the last and final prompt under restoration, which is read a book in a different place every time you pick it up. That's when I was catching the train, sitting in a different spot and listening to my audiobook, and that audiobook is Under the Whispering Door by J Klune. It was a 3 stars for me, but I read Ravensong during this vlog as well and it ended up being 5, so I have clearly a versatile understanding of this author's work, and that is completely okay. I found where my favourites lie with him, so that is the success that I'm taking away from this. I did also mention at some point that I wanted to read a graphic novel through this readathon, and I was talking about volume 1 of Outcast, but I keep putting that off to the point where I don't think I'm gonna end up reading it and I might just straight up unhaul it. Dave has read it, and I usually have similar tastes that cross over with him, and he didn't love it. So that makes me go, I don't think I'm gonna love it either. So that was the graphic novel, and I just replaced it in the readathon with Read a Book Before Bed, and that was Ravensong. I doubled up for that one. So I avoided that completely because I was like, I don't want to feel unhappy with what I'm reading. So in terms of the readathon, I think I actually did pretty well given that I was barely reading anything up until like the 8th of August. And so the fact that I finished so much within these, I think 2 weeks maybe of the readathon, I'm pretty happy with. That's the intent that I went into this readathon with, to finish some books on my reading pile and read some new releases. So I've definitely smashed that out of the park. I'm so happy. Actually, one of the books that I did read during this readathon that I have not mentioned since the beginning is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I ended up really enjoying that and gave it 4 stars too. So that was a success. I liked how it discussed family and grief and trauma, but also budding romance and self-reflection and self-growth. I think it was excellently done, wrapped up with a romance subplot. Romance did take up some of the story, but not the whole story, so I see why people describe it as fiction and also romance. It fits very neatly into both categories. Anyhow, I would recommend Emily Henry because it was a lot of fun. And I also realised that Payback's a Witch was blowed by Emily Henry, so all around a great time. But that is the end of this reading vlog. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Let me know down below what is a book that you've really enjoyed lately, because I could do with some recommendations. But again, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll come chat to you in the comments and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.